Hello, this is Pastor Keith with another episode of Zion Plus for Zion kids at home. Let's begin today by singing a psalm, Psalm 110. There we go. The Lord says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. The Lord sends forth from Zion your mighty scepter. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people offer freely on the day of your power in holy garments. From the womb of the morning, the dew of your youth is yours. The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. The Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of his wrath. He'll judge among the nations, filling them with corpses. He'll shatter chiefs o'er the wide earth. He'll drink from the brook by the way. Therefore he'll lift up his head. Psalm 110. And so I want to talk about Psalm 110 a little bit today because it's got this amazing guy in it named Melchizedek. Melchizedek, it says, you're a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Who the heck is Melchizedek? Here's another picture of Melchizedek. He is a king and a priest. The Bible tells us there's Abraham with the spear on his shoulder, and he's getting a big cup of wine and a loaf of bread from this guy, and that's Melchizedek, and he is a priest and a king, and that's a crazy idea. It's funny that's in Genesis 14 where we read about Melchizedek, we read the story, but it's also there in Psalm 110 when we sing about it. David wrote this psalm so that we could sing about a guy who is a priest and a king. That's usually those two, and almost always in the Bible, those two things are separate. The king is the guy who's supposed to protect the nation. He makes the laws and he drives away the enemies. He's supposed to lead the army and defeat the enemies and keep the people safe. That's the king's job. His job is different than the job of the priest. The job of the priest was to make sacrifices. Priests in the Bible made two kinds of sacrifices. One was animal sacrifices on the burnt altar, offer of burnt offering, and the other kind of sacrifice was this, what he's doing here. It's an incense offering. You take some powder and you put it on the fire, and it's a sweet smelling. It kind of smolders and burns and makes smoke, and it smells. And so that's what incense is, and that's a picture of prayer that goes up in a cloud before God. So you're not supposed to do both of them. You remember the story about the guy who tried to do both? One of the kings in Israel, Uzziah, tried to do both. He's not supposed to do both. He wanted to burn incense like the priests do. So he took incense and he went into the temple and he was offering incense, and God smote him. God stopped him. God struck him with leprosy right there. And Uzziah had to leave. He was unclean. He was not qualified. You can't be, if you're a king, you're not supposed to be a priest. Well, and that's the way that Moses gave the law. When Moses gave the law, it was to set up the tabernacle. The people were supposed to build a tabernacle, and there's the burnt offering, the big fiery one where the animals are burned up, and then there's the big laver, the big basin of water where they would wash, and then there's the second tent, the tent inside the tent, the holy place, and in there's the other incense place, the other altar, the altar of incense, where you put the powdery stuff on and make it burn and smell. So that's how you're supposed to do it. And you're not supposed to go in there. Regular people, you see the woman down here at the bottom by the door with a lamb. She's waiting for her turn. And you can come to the doorway. You can come to the gate of the tabernacle. You're not supposed to go any farther. The gateway, you see somebody inside there with a lamb too. That's the whole entryway there is part of the gateway. But you don't go any farther. You don't go to the laver, and you definitely don't go into the holy place. Those are restricted areas. Do not cross. You're only supposed to go in there if you're an ordained priest, if you've been ordained and robed and washed and doing it the same way. So how do we get David writing about this king who is also a priest. And here's a verse that we need to think about. It says, "When there's a change in the priesthood, there's necessarily a change in the law." And that's what happened when Jesus came, because Jesus was both a king and a priest. He's the king of his people, but he protects his people. He defeats the enemy that we have. He defeats our enemy, Satan. But he's also the priest. He makes a sacrifice. He takes his own blood and puts it on the altar before the Father. And so when you have a new priest, Jesus is not part of the priests that came in the law that Moses brought. Jesus is from a different tribe altogether. But he is now the priest, and when there's a change in priesthood, when you get Jesus coming, then that means there's a change in the law. So you don't need the tabernacle. You don't need the priests doing what they do anymore, because you have a new priest who is both a king and a priest, like Melchizedek. Melchizedek was a priest and a king, and he gave bread and wine to Abraham when Abraham came back after his victory in battle. That's a priest who is a king, and that's what we sing about in Psalm 110. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Well, that's it for Zion Plus today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again next time.